Welcome to the next episode of Honesty Talk. We are going to discuss the challenges of raising Muslim children. We're all mothers, different age children. What are the challenges of raising these mini mu'mins or these children that we would like to turn into mu'mins?
And there's that word.
And there's that aspiration that places a heck of a lot of pressure on us as mothers.
Turn. That was the word that stood out for me when you were speaking, because it sounds as though we have control over the outcome. You know, when we're raising children, we feel like if I do this, there's a prescription. This, teach them the Quran, teach them how to pray, XYZ, send them to madrasa, and they will come out okay, they'll be Muslim, they will choose Allah, they will love Allah, they will, they're born in a Muslim family, so they're gonna be Muslim. And if they do otherwise, it's chaos and what's the translation for khasara? Like a loss.
Yeah, just absolute calamity. And we see it as reflecting on us. Especially mothers. Yeah. I don't know about how it weighs out with brothers and how they feel if their child doesn't turn out the way they had envisioned, but I know for us, like for we mothers, we chop ourselves down completely. We carry so much guilt as mothers. Yeah. So much. We do so much for our children, and yet we carry so much guilt. We question ourselves, we berate ourselves, we criticize ourselves. I should have done this better, or why did I make this choice, and why did I take this decision? And so, when I ask the question, what are the challenges of raising Muslim children? I'm actually thinking, what challenges do we bring on ourselves as mothers in raising Muslim children? I'm seeing our sisters that are mothers, and I'm seeing them tired, exhausted beyond belief. Now, we're all mothers, so we know how much time, blood, sweat, energy goes into raising these children, right? Why, though, is it that we're finding sisters just kind of falling apart in the process of mothering?
I feel like there are so many expectations upon us as mothers. And I know that from my cultural background, I've always heard, when there's good that's happened with a child, the father is celebrated. And when something bad happens, look at your kid. Oh, this is my daughter, but look at your daughter, look what she's done, So the woman is seen as the one who has to keep it together, keep it going, and make sure the destination is reached with the kids. And if it's not, then it's her fault. She didn't do enough. And that has been conditioned in us so much that we have assumed that to be the truth. When in fact, we know that every child is born with free will. And even that truth is hard to kind of admit, that they have the choice to choose their own path. And that ultimately their path is not within our hands.
No. And I've said this before. I've said that there comes a point, particularly when they become teenagers, and LaYinka, you and I, we both have teenagers, where yes, they've been born into Islam, so they haven't had to make that choice to revert like I did. There comes a point where they have to choose Islam for themselves. Yes, they've been raised upon Tawheed. Yes, they've learned how to read the Quran, they pray, they fast. So in all respects, they're practicing. However, they need to come to a point in their lives where they say, I am a Muslim, and this is my choice, and this is how I choose to now live my life. And I think as parents, we automatically think that that's a given.
Yeah.
That's a given, because I have put in so much effort with these kids since day one that you know what, you are a Muslim, damn right.
Yeah. And so if a child does anything outside of the fold of Islam, again, it's like, I've done so much. Did I not do enough for you that now you've chosen this?
They need to choose it for themselves. And until they take ownership of their faith, really they are simply living upon what you taught them. And that's a good thing, alhamdulillah. You know, they are upon Islam, they are Muslims, alhamdulillah. However, for them to really advance their faith and maybe to reach the expectation that we have for them, because obviously we want them to be better than us, right? They need to come to a point where they choose it for themselves. Just as, I'm a revert, so obviously I had to make the choice to become Muslim. Both of you were born into Islam. There came a point where you had to decide, I'm going to practice my faith. We did that for ourselves. We made that choice ourselves. Somehow we don't apply that to our own children. And we don't give them the space to work that out either.
I don't even know if it's the case we don't give them the space. I don't even think we tell them that's a thing. You know, that choosing Islam and choosing Allah is down to you, that this is a journey for you to embark on.
I told my daughter that.
Like, I mean, mashallah, I did it as well with my teens, but I don't think as a community we talk about these things. You know, when they go to madrasa, it's already a given. You're a Muslim, you were born into Islam. Khalas, like, why are we to talk about anything else?
I think they hope that they're instilling. They don't want to be introducing options. Like, I think that's what it is. Like, they hope that they're instilling.
I've got a choice.
Yeah, like what? And you know, and because also the society around them is producing options and showing them actually, you don't need to blindly follow. You know, there's a lot of, and so parents covet and really try and protect and compensate for that, especially when they're really little. And you know, because now we're parents, we've seen them from when they're really small, and we have so much stake in the matter. It's hard to be hands off, and even if you know it in your mind, it would still break your heart.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. It's not straightforward like that.
And let's not make the mistake of saying that because we're advocating that they need to make that choice, that we're saying, yeah, but you know what, this is an option and that is an option. No, there are boundaries.
Yeah.
But what we're essentially saying is, yes, you are Muslim, and bi'idhnillah, you're going to continue to be Muslim. But we want you to take ownership of the fact that you are a Muslim. We want you to take ownership of your journey to the akhirah. You know, and not doing it because mum is saying get up and pray, but actually waking up and saying, I want to pray.
So what are practical steps that we can take to do that? Because it's all well and good us speaking about it, right? It's nice in theory.
Yeah, true.
It's also one that many people struggle with. So what are some practical things that we can actually do that we could say would be in the way and in the journey to help our kids choose Allah?
Well, I think first of all, we need to change our mindset as mothers. Okay, we have very, very high expectations of our Muslim children. And you know, we want them to be better than us. We don't want them to go through, you know, the pitfalls along the way. We want them to be better than us. But I think we have to understand that when they do make mistakes, when they lie, when they you know, when they lie, when they don't pray, you know, when they choose to do something that we've said, you know, you're not allowed to do, that they are in a position or on a part of their journey where they're experimenting. And I think when that happens, rather than say, right, that's it, you're like this, you're like that, discipline, we need to understand what's going on, right? And in order for us to understand what's going on for our children, we need to address ourselves and our expectations of them first.
Okay. See, expectations as a mother.
No, expectations of our kids.
But expectations as a mother for her kids. Like, in my head, I'm thinking my expectation is that they will do the right thing. But I know that they will not always do the right thing.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? I embrace their humanity, because at the end of the day, we're all human first, and we choose Islam, and we are guided to Islam. So our humanity means that inherently we are sinful, that we are flawed, that we make mistakes, and that's why Alhamdulillah Tawbah exists, right? And I think for me, it's been a journey to accept that just as I am fallible, my kids are fallible, and to embrace and accept that and not expect perfection of them. Because it's easy as a parent to say, to look at these mini Muslims and think they're mini adults. And to think, why are you messing about in Salah?
You should know better. Yeah.
I see like parents like hammering kids when they struggle to stand still.
At the age of 6 and 7.
Like, come on now. Come on now.
For real though, right?
Yeah. Like, well, come on. Don't you know you're praying? But they're a kid. Kids have short attention spans, and at the end of the day, it's not fard. It's not obligatory upon them to be praying right now.
This leads me on to something. I think, when they're little, we, especially with the first child, we expect a lot from them, and without realizing it, we're actually, many mothers are offering them a very strict and rigid version of Islam. Yeah? 6 and 7-year-old is praying with mum, is fidgeting in Salah. What is her focus? Her focus is upon the fidgeting, reprimands the child, but fails to praise the child for the fact that he or she is praying. And I think when they move towards the teenage years, is it any wonder why the teenagers are rebelling against Islam when what they've grown up with is a very harsh, strict version of the deen, where it's just been, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, this time, and we're subhanAllah, we've spoken about this in terms of adults. But we're actually doing it for our kids as well. We are focusing so much on the external practices of Islam with our children, and we're hardly spending any time working on their hearts, so that their hearts are inclined towards the faith.
Yeah, I think that when you were saying like practical steps, I think that really, I hate to go back, but it goes back to us like modeling it. Like, am I modeling self-acceptance, self-compassion? How we talk about God? Like, this is something that is, we all have our things that we excel at and things that we're not great at. But one of the things that I believe in is really talking to my kids about God. Like, when it rains, this is our chance to make dua and ask for anything we want. When I'm really, really in trouble and I need something, I know that there's no one in the world that can get it for me. So I ask Allah because I know He can give it to me.
I think it's
from when they're really little.
Because we do talk about Allah in the community, but we're talking about astaghfirullah, ittaqullah, you're going to go to the hellfire.
Or aqidah, it's very theoretical.
Very textbook.
How many of us are like, and I know that this was missing for me, and I know that it was missing for my children in their early years as well. Like, loving Allah and choosing to love Allah, knowing, the analogy of the bird with the wings. Love is at the head of it. Love is the main thing, with the hopes of the wing of hope and fear, right? But we focus on the fear, not even the hope and the love, but the fear. Fear Allah. You shouldn't do that because Allah is going to be angry with you. But like you were saying, the child praying, oh, Allah loves when you pray. And imagine then if we change that conversation and, you know, focused on all the khair that Allah has given us, all the goodness, and how even when you've made a mistake, okay, that's okay, because you can ask Allah to forgive you, and we just feel bad about it and do better next time.
Yeah, and it's what they see and what they know. There's so many people who have been raised secular, like religion by culture only and by their name. But they'll say like, I had a grandma who used to pray. And I would see her. Every time we'd go over her place, I would see her wrap up and do her little salah. Not the parents, the grandma. Or like, you know, they see the Quran. They just have these small, faint memories, but they are like anchors. And even if that person goes through the whole process, eventually there could be something that could turn them around. If they go through turbulent teenage years, they could come around, you know, and say like, you know, I always saw my parents praying. I always heard my mom say, Allah never lets us down. Like these things, like they never leave you. I don't care where you go. They never leave you. And to think that like that person could be in the darkest place, in the worst condition, and they just have a seed, you know? So if we as parents can plant seeds, then the rest is dua and outcome. We don't know.
I like that. I like that analogy of planting seeds rather than expecting the fruit, the fruit. Yes, I think that really signifies our like the need for our focus to be on planting the seeds and what those seeds are, because we are always planting seeds anyway. But what are the seeds that we are planting? Because when we're seeing rebellious teenagers, it's not because they've all of a sudden turned around to be like monsters. It's because there's a seed that was planted that might not have been good, you know, or the wrong kind of seed.
Or it's a phase, and they're gonna need to process it and come around. And just like you're saying, there's pressure because the outcome is attached to the effort of the parent. So if they're, you know, it's the gossip. Their child went off the rails because they must have been doing something wrong. But here are our children, let me shepherd them over here away from that bad company. There's a very, you know, the parents get the flack for it and the shame and all this stuff, but you're investing in your children. You have no guarantee for tomorrow either.
You know, I have a different side to this. As I'm listening to both of you, I'm also thinking that, you know, in the world of social media, a lot of the mothers are so wrapped up in the world of social media that they're unable to plant those seeds because they don't have the time, because they're so distracted by that world that they're not seeing what's actually happening in their lives. And I'm seeing this more and more. Sisters of children are neglecting their kids. They're fobbing them off with an iPad and a phone. Their kids are with their phone and their iPad in their room by themselves, free access to Wi-Fi. They're getting involved in all of these things. And then later on, these sisters are crying, asking, why is my child not praying anymore? And I think one of the challenges in raising Muslim children is that we are spending more time online and we're not present with our kids. We're not fully present with our kids. And you know me, I'm all for self-worth, self-care, self-love. We also have to take responsibility. We also have to take responsibility, you know? And this is the case. Neglect is taking place. We're not talking about neglect in terms of food and clothing and shelter.
No, people
neglect
wouldn't
is
see
taking
that.
place.
People wouldn't see what those things and kind of leaving the kids to do their thing with their iPad and their iPhone as neglect. There is, I don't have a word for it right now, but it's so interesting that you use that particular word, because I know that as people are watching this, they're going to feel like,
well, it is neglect.
There's going to be an internal reaction.
It's not
to
the
that.
fact that they own a phone and an iPad.
Yeah.
Let me make that clear. It's the fact that you've given them free access. I'm talking about those that have given free access. They're not invested in their children. They're not present with their children. They don't spend hardly any time with their kids. And their children are now wrapped up in an online world. Yeah. That is neglect. You are neglecting their emotional growth. You're neglecting their mental growth, and you're definitely neglecting their Islamic growth. Yeah, when you have, there's a sister. I'll never forget what she said. She said to me, her daughter's friend came over to have dinner, and her daughter's friend was amazed that her family ate together, right? And so my friend's daughter said to her, "Why don't you eat with your family?" She said, "No, we just take our dinner and we go up to our individual rooms and we eat whilst we're on our devices."
Wow.
This is, in order for us to plant that seed, you don't just plant the seed, khalas, walk away. You pay attention to the seeds that you've planted. You make sure that you're giving it just the right amount of water, just the right amount of sunlight. Otherwise, what was the point of planting? And I really am quite passionate about this. And it's something that I have to keep reminding myself of because I'm so busy in what I do. That, have I, when my child has approached me and wants to speak to me, am I, or am I really giving them my focus? And I have to stop myself because it's so easy to fall into that. I'm not, this is not me saying, everyone else and I fall into that as well.
Yeah.
But it's about us becoming aware that sometimes the challenges that our children encounter is because sometimes, obviously it's environmental as well, but sometimes it's because we haven't put in the right amount of presence into our parenting. We tell, but are we really present?
The flip side of that could be a sister who feels like she has done a lot and then there's something like the child still comes out.
That's her test. And that has happened. How many sisters do we know who have put in the effort?
Yes.
Who have been present, who have, done an amazing job, and their child chooses something else. That is their test. And we know everyone has their test. And that is one of the hardest tests. For your child, who you invested so much into, to choose other than Islam. That is one of the biggest tests.
Unimaginable.
It is. We're kind of coming to the end of the episode. I can't believe already.
Yeah, it went quickly.
There's so much more to say on this topic, and I'm sure the discussions will be very, very insightful. What are your thoughts about the challenges in raising Muslim children? Obviously, we're talking about it from the point of view as mothers. What are your thoughts?
It's just, I feel like it's such a challenging topic because we, like you said, sometimes we have been decreed to be tested with our children, and Allah even says in the Quran that your children are fitna.
They will be
and for us to realize that we will be tested with them in some sort of way. Maybe not when they're really, really young, but maybe when they're like at some point we will be tested with our children. Dua. That is not just making dua and not doing anything. Let's just be clear.
Let's tie your camel.
Yeah, tie your camel. Tie your camel and make dua, and specific dua for what you want, especially knowing your children and getting to know your children, because certain children have certain quirks, certain weaknesses and whatever. Like, you can see them, notice them, and make dua for that and for them, and to really believe that Allah hears and will answer your dua for your kids.
Sumayah?
For me, I take away the actively trying to be present, like making a choice at least a certain percentage of the time that I'm gonna force myself to be, because I can feel it, like in the quality, the guilt is there on the busy days. And the kids can sense my absence, and so they act up.
Yeah.
Like they can feed off of that busyness and distraction that I'm in. And it's a world of difference on the days when I'm fully present and I have a plan and I'm really with them. Yeah. So there's a difference, and I want more of that, not just for them but also for me.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, my final thoughts. It's my final thoughts are raising children, I think, full stop, is a challenge. Raising children with the hope that they become God conscious is another challenge. And I think, it goes back to what you said, LaYinka, to make profound dua for them. And at the same time, really analyzing what we're doing as mothers from a very gentle and compassionate place, yet firm and honest. I think having that balance and really saying, okay, what am I doing as a mum? What decisions have I taken in parenting my children that is going to, encourage them towards the deen and towards manners and principles? And what am I doing that's actually the complete opposite of that? And what can I do to change it? And with all of that, coupled with dua, bi'idhnillah, Allah will bestow mercy upon our parenting and our children.
Yeah.
And that's what it all boils down to. Really, it's His mercy and His guidance. And we hope, right, that He sees the efforts and the level of honesty with ourselves and taking ourselves to account from a position of mercy as mothers, and that He takes care of the rest. And that's all we can do. Okay, so that wraps up this episode. Sisters, please do visit the Facebook page, share your thoughts and comments, and we look forward to meeting with you again on the next episode.
What leads a sister to get to a point where she feels like she can no longer converse with Allah?
Sometimes it's really, really hard to even do the basics, if I'm honest.
Do we actually spend time building the foundations of our belief?
I think it's fair to say you could get to a point where you're just barely holding on.
And it's when the test comes that we realize, my goodness,
I was not what I thought I was.
I was not there.